Imagine losing everything you hold dear, your soulmate, your sense of peace, and your happiness. Now picture a stranger walking into your life and doing the unthinkable to heal a broken family. This is the incredible true story of a millionaire. Widower, his restless twins, and a nanny who changed everything. Before diving, let us know from where you are watch. We love to know your thoughts. Stay tuned, you won't believe what happens next. Marcus Williams had everything anyone could ever dream of. He was a self-made millionaire, someone who had turned his entrepreneurial vision into an empire. With a string of successful tech companies and investments, he was known in the business world as a force to be reckoned with. His name was synonymous with wealth and influence, a man who had climbed from nothing to the top, a true embodiment of the American dream. His life was one of luxury. He lived in a sprawling mansion nestled on a hill overlooking the glittering skyline of the city. He drove the best cars, and every corner of his home was adorned with expensive art, the finest furniture and state-of-the-art gadgets. He was married to the woman of his dreams, Sarah, a woman whose beauty and grace matched the elegance of the life they built together. They had twin children, a son, James, and a daughter, Lily, both of whom were the apple of Marcus's eye. Every day felt like a new adventure in a life that seemed too perfect to be real. But perfection, as they say, is often fleeting. One cold, rainy evening, everything changed. Sarah, his loving wife, passed away unexpectedly. The doctors couldn't provide an answer, no warning, no time to say goodbye. The life Marcus had known was shattered in an instant. The woman who had been his rock, his confidant, and the mother of his children was gone. In the blink of an eye, Marcus went from being a powerful businessman to a heartbroken father. He had all the money in the world, but no amount of wealth could replace the love he lost. He tried to carry on to function, but the weight of the grief was unbearable. The mansion felt empty without Sarah's laughter filling the rooms, without the warmth of her presence. Every morning, Marcus would get up and go through the motions of his day, attending meetings, closing deals, and overseeing projects, but his heart wasn't in it. It was as if the world had lost its color. What hit him the hardest was seeing his children, James and Lily, suffer the same way. They were too young to understand why their mother was no longer there. They would cry themselves to sleep every night, reaching for her in the empty space beside them. The silence in their room was deafening, and the house that was once full of life and laughter now echoed with the soft sobs of two children who had lost the person they loved most. Despite all his attempts to comfort them, Marcus felt powerless. He could not fill the gap Sarah had left behind, and neither could anyone else. His nights were filled with their cries, and no matter how many expensive therapists or comforting nannies he hired, none could bring the peace they so desperately needed. In his darkest moments, Marcus realized something: he could provide them with every material thing they wanted. But what his children truly needed was love, understanding, and healing. And just as he had turned to success for everything else in life, he knew he had to find a solution for his family's emotional needs. This would be the most difficult challenge of his life, but he was determined to do whatever it took. So he made a decision that he never thought he would make. He hired a nanny, a person who would come into their home and help bridge the emotional gap that had formed after Sarah's death. But little did he know, this simple decision would set into motion a chain of events that would transform their lives in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. The nanny he hired wasn't just another caregiver, and Marcus had no idea that she would soon become the lifeline his family needed. The journey ahead would be full of unexpected twists, but it was about to lead him to a path of healing, rediscovery, and unimaginable transformation. Naomi's arrival in the Williams household was nothing short of unexpected. Unlike the polished, professionally trained nannies Marcus had previously hired, Naomi didn't fit the typical mold. She wasn't the picture-perfect image of a caregiver, nor did she come with glowing references from elite families or prestigious schools. In fact, she had never worked for anyone as wealthy as Marcus Williams. Naomi wasn't wealthy herself. She had grown up in a modest neighborhood, with humble beginnings that shaped her compassionate nature. What Marcus noticed about Naomi immediately wasn't her credentials but her presence. It was something warm, genuine, and deeply authentic. She carried with her an air of kindness, not in a showy, calculated way, but in a natural, comforting manner that immediately put those around her at ease. It was clear she wasn't there to impress anyone. She was simply there to help without any pretense. Her first meeting with James and Lily was nothing like what Marcus had seen with the other nannies. While the previous caregivers tried to bond with the twins by offering them expensive toys, sweet treats, or expensive distractions, Naomi took a different approach. She didn't rush to entertain them with material things. Instead, she knelt down to their level, her eyes soft and kind, and simply spoke to them. "Tell me about your favorite things," she asked, her voice warm and soothing. James hesitated. But Lily, always the more outgoing of the two, spoke up about her favorite storybook and the adventures of the brave knight she imagined herself as. Naomi smiled and encouraged James to share his, and soon they were talking freely. She wasn't trying to replace their mother. Naomi understood that no one could. But what she did offer was something just as valuable, a safe space for the children to express their emotions, their fears, and their desires. She didn't force them into anything. There was no pressure to move on or forget about their mother. Naomi let them grieve in their own time, and more importantly, she validated their feelings. Over the next few days, Marcus began to notice something remarkable. Naomi's approach wasn't just affecting the children, it was changing the entire atmosphere in the house. The once cold and silent hallways of the mansion now had an air of warmth. There was laughter again, soft giggles and joyful sounds as Naomi played with the twins, telling them stories or playing simple games. For the first time in months, Marcus found himself hearing his children's laughter echoing through the halls, and it was the most beautiful sound he could remember. Naomi wasn't just a nanny, she was a listener. She would sit with the children, play with them, and gently guide them through their emotions. But it wasn't just the children who were affected. Marcus, too, found himself drawn to her. He had been so focused on work and business that he had neglected to see what was truly happening around him. Naomi's presence had begun to heal the wounds that he hadn't even realized were still open. It was in the quiet moments, watching Naomi interact with his children, that Marcus began to feel something he hadn't in months' hope. It wasn't the hope that his life would return to how it had been, but the hope that his family could heal, that they could find peace again, even in the wake of tragedy. He realized then that Naomi wasn't just helping the children. She was helping him too. Naomi brought with her a quiet strength that spoke volumes, and without even trying, she had become a source of comfort and stability for the entire family. And then, one evening, Naomi did something completely unexpected. It would change everything. It was late one evening when Naomi did something that would forever change the course of the Williams family's journey. It was a moment that no one could have predicted, and yet it was exactly what the family needed. The twins, James and Lily, had been restless all day, struggling to adjust to their new routine after the loss of their mother. The house, although now filled with laughter and warmth, still had an air of sadness that seemed to linger. Despite Naomi's best efforts, the children still found it hard to fall asleep peacefully. Marcus, who had been working late in his study, could hear the soft sobs of his children through the walls. He had tried everything to help them, from comforting them with stories to providing them with soft toys, but nothing seemed to work. Their nightmares were persistent, their fears so deep-rooted that no words or actions seemed capable of soothing them. He had grown exhausted, both mentally and emotionally, and he couldn't help but feel guilty for not being able to provide the comfort his children needed. Despite all the wealth in the world, he felt helpless. That night, as Marcus stood near the door of the children's room, he watched Naomi as she sat beside the twins' beds. She was calm, composed, and so utterly present. Her warm voice filled the room as she spoke softly to them, her words gentle and kind, but somehow still they struggled to rest. Naomi glanced over at Marcus, who stood silently watching, unsure of what more he could do. She gave him a knowing look, a look that conveyed everything without needing to say a word. And then she did something that no one, not even Marcus, expected. Naomi stood up from the bedside and walked toward the large window in the corner of the room. The moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting soft, silvery shadows on the walls. She opened the window just enough for the cool night air to enter, and then she closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Marcus was confused. What was she doing? He had seen her comfort the twins, play with them, and sing to them, but this was different. Naomi wasn't using any tricks or techniques that Marcus had seen from other nannies. This felt real. Without saying a word, Naomi began to hum. The sound was soft at first, almost imperceptible, but as it grew, Marcus could feel something shift in the room. There was a rhythm to it, a gentle, soothing quality that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. The melody wasn't a song he recognized, but it didn't matter. There was a calming power in her voice, something so pure that it immediately connected with the children, as if it was exactly what they needed. At first, Marcus wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it just her gentle hum, or was there something more? But as Naomi continued to hum, something miraculous happened. The room, which had been filled with tension, began to settle. The twins, who had been tossing and turning, suddenly became still. Their breath slowed, their bodies relaxed, and their eyes fluttered closed as they drifted into a peaceful, dreamless sleep. The tension that had been present in the room for so long, the grief and the sadness, seemed to dissolve into the very air. Marcus stood there transfixed. He had witnessed his children fall asleep countless times, but never like this. Never with such peace. It was as though Naomi had unlocked something within them, a deep, hidden part of their souls that was finally able to heal. It wasn't just the hum that made the difference. It was Naomi's intention behind it, the deep, soulful understanding that the children didn't just need comfort, but the security of knowing that someone who cared deeply was there for them. She wasn't trying to entertain them or distract them from their pain. She was acknowledging it and giving them space to heal. Marcus could hardly believe his eyes. The children were finally asleep. Peace had descended upon the room, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a sense of calm wash over him too. Naomi's act, as simple as it seemed, was the turning point. It wasn't just a lullaby or a bedtime ritual. It was a bridge that connected them all to a moment of healing. He had never believed in anything quite like this, but in that moment, he felt the unspoken bond between Naomi, his children, and himself. It was the beginning of something new, something that would change their family forever. Naomi had done something unthinkable, not just by humming a melody, but by offering her heart and soul, and in return she had unlocked the peace his family so desperately needed. The days following Naomi's unthinkable act were nothing short of transformative. Marcus found himself awake at night, sitting in his study, reflecting on the events that had unfolded in his home. The hum Naomi had sung to soothe the twins had been an unexpected miracle. He had watched as his children, who had once been consumed by grief and restless nights, now slept soundly and peacefully, their faces relaxed and content. It was almost as if the trauma of losing their mother had been acknowledged, respected, and, in some way, released. For the first time in months, Marcus saw a glimmer of hope on his children's faces. But Marcus's realization didn't come overnight. At first, he tried to dismiss the significance of Naomi's actions. He told himself it was just a coincidence, that the kids were simply tired. But deep down, Marcus knew better. There was something far more profound at work in that moment, a power that went beyond the ordinary and into the realm of true emotional healing. Naomi's presence in their lives wasn't just about getting the kids to sleep. It was about mending the brokenness that had lingered within them since Sarah's death. The nights grew easier, the cries less frequent. James and Lily no longer clung to him in fear, and instead, they looked forward to their evening routines with Naomi, asking her to read their favorite books or play quiet games. They had learned, without even realizing it, that they could trust Naomi to guide them through their grief, to help them navigate the storm of emotions that had once been overwhelming. But it wasn't just the children who were changing. Marcus himself had begun to heal, though in ways he hadn't expected. For so long, he had buried his grief, focusing all his energy on work, on maintaining the business, and on ensuring his family had everything they could ever want. He thought that providing material comforts was enough, but he soon realized that no amount of money, no grand house, no successful business venture could replace the emotional nourishment his family needed. Naomi's gentle approach, her quiet strength, and her deep empathy made Marcus question the choices he had made in the past. He had been so consumed by his own grief that he had forgotten to truly see the needs of his children. In his quest for success, he had overlooked the importance of emotional connection. Naomi had brought to light something Marcus had neglected for far too long: the value of love, presence, and vulnerability. He began spending more time with his children, not just as their father, but as someone who could share in their emotions, their sadness, and their joy. He started listening, really listening to them, without the distractions of work or the demands of business. The children, in turn, began to open up to him in ways they hadn't before. They shared their memories of their mother, their fears, their dreams. It was raw, emotional, and sometimes painful, but it was healing. One evening, as Marcus sat with James and Lily on the living room couch, he realized something he hadn't understood until then. Healing wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about moving on or pretending that the pain didn't exist. Healing was about accepting the hurt, the grief, and the loss, and learning how to live with it, how to grow from it. Naomi had taught them all that lesson in her quiet, unassuming way. For the first time since Sarah's passing, Marcus felt a deep sense of peace. It wasn't a peace that meant everything was perfect again, it wasn't. But it was a peace that came from understanding that, while some things were irreparably lost, there was still so much more to be found in the moments they shared, in the love they gave each other, and in the support of a woman who had come into their lives when they needed her most. Marcus couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Naomi had not only brought peace to his children, she had brought peace to him too. She had been the catalyst for the healing process that they so desperately needed. In doing so, she had changed the course of their lives in a way that no amount of wealth or success ever could. It wasn't just about hiring a nanny. It was about embracing vulnerability, about allowing someone into the family who could show them a different way of loving, of grieving, and of healing. Naomi's impact went far beyond her role as a caregiver. She had become a symbol of strength and transformation for the Williams family, and in that, Marcus had found something he had never known he was missing: a path forward. Months passed, and with each passing day, the Williams family transformed in ways Marcus never thought possible. What had once been a household filled with sorrow, tension, and restless nights now radiated warmth, laughter, and a sense of peace that was almost palpable. The heavy shadow of grief that had loomed over the mansion seemed to dissipate, slowly but surely, thanks to Naomi's gentle presence. It wasn't just the kids who were sleeping soundly again. Marcus himself was finding rest. For the first time since Sarah's death, he no longer lay awake at night, consumed by his own thoughts and regrets. He slept peacefully, knowing that his children were in good hands and that they were healing. There was no greater relief than that. He had come to understand that the miracle wasn't in the silence of the house, nor in the peaceful nights they had learned to enjoy. It was in the healing of their hearts, the reopening of doors they had closed out of pain. Naomi had become more than just a nanny. She had woven herself into the fabric of the Williams family in a way that was both subtle and profound. She had taken on the role of a caretaker, a guide, and in many ways a surrogate mother for the twins. Her nurturing energy and wisdom had given the children the emotional space they needed to process their grief, and in doing so had created a foundation for their emotional resilience. James and Lily had blossomed under her care. Their personalities, once clouded by the fog of loss, now shone brightly. They laughed more freely, played with a joy they hadn't known in months, and shared stories about their mother, not with tears but with fond memories. They had begun to thrive, to find comfort not just in their memories but in the love that surrounded them now. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with vibrant shades of orange and pink, Marcus sat outside on the patio, watching his children run around in the yard, their laughter echoing through the air. Naomi stood nearby, watching over them. With a serene smile, she wasn't just observing the children. She was a quiet pillar of strength, ensuring that they were grounded, that their emotional needs were met, and that they felt safe. The healing she had nurtured in this house wasn't just a surface-level fix. It ran deep into the roots of their family, and Marcus knew that without her, they might still be lost in the darkness of their grief. It struck Marcus then how much he had taken for granted in the past, how much he had focused on external success, on the material world, and neglected the true essence of family life. Naomi had shown him what truly mattered, the simple yet profound act of being present for the ones you love, of offering them a safe space to heal and grow. The wealth he had accumulated over the years meant little now compared to the emotional wealth that filled their home. One evening, Marcus sat down with Naomi for the first time. He truly looked at her not as an employee, not as a caregiver, but as the remarkable woman who had transformed his family's life. "Naomi, I don't think I can ever thank you enough," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Naomi simply smiled, her eyes warm and knowing. "You don't need to," she replied. "You've already given me the greatest gift, trust." The word struck Marcus deeply. Trust. That was what had been missing all along. Trust in his ability to heal, trust in his children's resilience, and most importantly, trust in others especially. Naomi, it was a lesson he would carry with him forever. In the months that followed, Naomi continued to play an integral role in their lives. She remained with the family not just as a nanny, but as a cherished friend, a guiding light in their journey toward healing. She taught them all how to live with their grief, how to find strength in vulnerability, and how to love without fear of loss. The miracle of healing had come not in the form of grand gestures, but in the quiet moments, the hum that soothed the twins to sleep, the gentle conversations at the dinner table, and the shared laughter that echoed through their home. Marcus knew now that it wasn't about fixing everything at once. It was about allowing the healing process to unfold naturally, one small step at a time. And with Naomi's help, they had taken those steps together, rediscovering their love for each other and finding peace once more. The Williams family had been given a second chance, a chance to rebuild, to love, and to live again. And it was all because of Naomi, the woman who had done the unthinkable. She had brought their broken pieces together and turned them into something beautiful. As we come to the end of this incredible journey, we hope this story of resilience, love, and healing has inspired you as much as it has touched us. Life has a way of throwing obstacles in our path, but with the right support, love, and a little patience, even the darkest times can give way to the light. Just like Marcus and his family, we all have the power to heal, to grow, and to rebuild stronger than ever. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales and motivational content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, because no matter where you are on your journey, we're here to support and inspire you every step of the way. Thank you for watching, and remember, healing begins with the first step. Take it today.